folks, Jordan here with a update video on the 7 PCs I acquired in a recent haul. So without further ado, let's jump right into it, starting with the Acer Verret M264-EC1200C computer, the one with the Intel Celeron dual core inside. This one did not boot in the previous video, however I've gotten it to work, and the solution is actually a lot more simple than you might expect. Literally just a simple matter of reconnecting the power supply. You know, must have been some kind of a loose connection or something, but now as you can hear, it boots up perfectly fine, and there it be. Although annoyingly I haven't reset the chassis intrusion switch, but fortunately I can just press F1 and it keeps booting. Now this thing, I don't know what it is about it, but this thing, it's running Windows XP, which doesn't surprise me for something that was running Windows Vista Business when it was new. This thing only has 1 gig of RAM and 256 megabytes of it are shared for the video memory, but this thing still starts up ridiculously quick. Like, look at that. That is just ridiculous at how quick this thing starts up. That's impressive. I mean, I was not expecting to have something that actually starts up a lot quicker than even my best Windows XP systems. It's like about as quick as a freaking like Core i7-2600 running XP, and that's no joke. So anyway, yeah, not too shabby of a build here. Although, rather sadly, the Acer Empowering Technology folder is empty. I'm not sure why, because even though if I come back here to the My Computer folder and press the Properties button, you can see it's manufactured and supported by Acer. As you can see, a Celeron E1400 at 2 GHz with 768 megabytes of memory. Now what's interesting is when I browse the hard drive and take a look in like the Acer stuff, as you can see, there's like a couple of different things in here. There's like the E-Lock, there's this E-Performance thing, which has mostly been cloned out. And then if I come in here, there's a couple extra things. There's even the setup for the recovery software. However, for some reason, I'm not sure why, it says old NAPP version, e-recovery cannot be installed in this machine. So I'm not sure what's going on there. If anybody's got any kind of an idea, that would be kind of useful. But these other things, they don't really do anything. I've tried. I mean, reboot's going to obviously reboot the system, so I don't want to click on that. But as you can see, there's all the inbuilt stuff that would have came on this Windows XP image, including Internet Explorer 7 and yuck McAfee. But again, I mean, everything's there. It's just, for whatever reason, I'm not sure why, it's not able to be loaded. So I'm not sure if this needs like some kind of a BIOS update or some kind of update before it will let me image, or I should rephrase, I should actually be able to, you know, make the Acer recovery thing work. Although I might not strictly have to do that with this particular computer, because I believe this is running a very similar build of XP Professional to the Acer Power FH that looks very much identical to what this is running, even down to the wallpaper and everything. So what I might just be able to do, and this is obviously going to be for a future video, I might just be able to use the discs from that machine, which I was actually able to create a whole whopping 6 CDs, and I might be able to run that to restore the original Windows installation. Although this was licensed originally for Windows Vista Business, but I imagine they downgraded it to Windows XP Professional through the downgrade rights that this machine probably had when it was new, and that was probably what it came with from Acer, which would make sense. So, I don't know. I can't take too many assumptions, but that would be my guess. So, otherwise, this machine is fully functional, and it seems to work very, very well. I'm actually really surprised at how well it works for a Celeron. So, definitely, the meme lives on and will hopefully continue to serve me very well for some future videos, as this thing is definitely going to be in some of them in the near future. Just, you know, expect that to be the case. So anyway, moving on to the next Acer, which is probably going to be the Acer Power FH, which is true. So here we have the Acer Power FH, which I don't know why the mouse keeps blinking like that. I guess the USB ports are still getting power. Anyway, this is the Windows Vista Premium Ready Pentium D meme. I'll go ahead and get it powering on here. So this machine, I was able to make the aforementioned recovery disks for, and those I have not tested to see if they'll actually do anything. The reason why I made them was because of the fact that, for whatever reason, and I'm not sure why this is, I tried running the Acer e-recovery on this thing, and it wouldn't work. Every time I would try to run it, it says it couldn't format the C drive. So I'm not sure what's going on there, so I'm just going to do it. The only way that I know that it will work is through the CDs, and oh, excuse me, that should get it to work. I don't see why it wouldn't. However, this machine had a pretty nasty malware problem, and I mean it was nasty. And it was having a very similar issue to the Windows 2000 box, which we might take a look at next, but I don't know, I might take a look at the last Acer that I got that actually works. But anyway, so what was going on was it would boot up, and it would seem like it would be working fine until, like, whenever something tried to access the internet, and then it would just lock up the entire system. And if you were to go into Task Manager to look, you could tell that the system idle process was using 100% of the CPU. So I knew right away something wasn't right, and I was correct. So I ran Malwarebytes 3.51, which is the latest version that will run on XP, I believe, and I was able to get it to launch in safe mode with networking, and I was able to run a scan, and holy mother of Christ, I saw so many infections on this computer, it wasn't even funny. So somebody definitely did not have a proper functioning anti-malware or antivirus client running on this computer when they were daily driving it back in the day. Definitely don't want to be risking it on XP, especially these days, but it seems like Malwarebytes cleaned up whatever the deal was, and it has restored it to functioning health. And I had a suspicion that the system itself wasn't actually like working properly anyway because of the whole recovery partition situation not working, but that's just generally the recovery partition just doing whatever it feels like, so I'm not really sure what the deal is with that. So this is probably going to be subject to a future video where I test those recovery CDs to make sure that we can restore the original Windows XP installation. Now, I've had some thoughts about this machine as well, about whether or not I'm actually going to hang on to it or if I'm going to sell it, because I don't really need it, because I've already got two Pentium D systems. One has the Pentium D 805, which is the slowest Pentium D ever made, and then I have a Dell Optiplex GX620 with the fastest, well, logically the fastest Pentium D ever made, which would be the Pentium D 960. I know that there's like the Pentium Extreme Edition 965, but that's a really rare chip, and I honestly don't know if I'm ever going to get one. I doubt it, because they're still going for like ridiculous amounts on eBay, but I digress. So being that this one is a Pentium D 830, I mean, it's nice. It's one of the later ones that actually will be able to run modern operating systems without a hitch. So, I mean, I have that going for it, and, DDR2 memory. This one only has 2 slots, but I believe it can take up to 4 gigabytes of RAM, so that is a nice plus. Although, it's not got Windows XP Media Center Edition, that's not exactly a deal breaker, but, again, I don't really need a system like this, necessarily, because it's got a Intel 946GZ motherboard in it, which, again, not that it's a deal breaker, because the GX620 is a 945 chipset, and the Gateway GT4024 has an ATI IXP 450 chipset, so neither of which, are particularly impressive, and neither is this one. This one's absolutely no exception, but, something about this system makes me feel like I don't really need it in my collection, because I've already got the 2 Pentium Ds. I don't really need a third one. Although, to be fair, this thing is very quiet. It's got the nice Socket 775 heatsink on it, and overall, it generally is a nice condition machine, and it's still running its original Windows, although that's not really that big of a deal these days, as it probably once was on my channel. I mean, I still kind of prioritize that, so I think it's kind of cool. But, again, what am I going to do with a Pentium D 830? I mean, I could try to use it in modern day times, but that's just kind of unnecessary when I have the 960 or the 805 to do that testing with, which intentionally I'd probably use those two anyway because one's the slowest and one's the fastest, so it's just like, why would I need one in the middle? But anyway, I'm just digressing at this point and going off on a tangent that I don't need to go off on. let's move on to the next system, which is going to be that last Acer, which is going to be the Verret M2630G. Alright, so I decided to actually update this one here on the floor. There's nothing really particularly interesting about it, and the Keurig's going to be going off here any second now, so don't mind the noises, but this is the Acer Verret M2630G, which I also got working. This one was a little bit more interesting to get going because this one actually had a bad power supply, as I stated in the original video. So, this hunk of crap, which I've got over here, I will actually go and show you, was the original power supply. This was a 300 watt power supply made by the FSP Group Incorporated. And I haven't popped the top to see what doesn't make this thing actually power anything on. I'm honestly not too sure. Because, I mean, it does supply like standby power, but it doesn't actually power on any computer that I've tried. And just based on like a visual inspection here, yes, that's my Keurig. It's low on water, so shut up, please. Anyway, I can't see anything that would suffice it to say a bad power supply. So I honestly don't know, and it's not really worth my time. I've already replaced the power supply as it is, as you can obviously see. So it's not really worth me going through the trouble of actually seeing what went wrong unless people are specifically looking for that, which I don't really care. So here's what I did. Instead of buying a power supply for this particular machine, I decided I'd actually buy a power supply for my main computer, which was this budget end EVGA 600 watt power supply. Not a cheapo one, but it's still a pretty good quality power supply on a budget. So I decided I would buy it and put it into the Optiplex 790, which actually seems to be working really well. Again, nice quality power supplies always make a difference. And then I took the old one and put it into here, and lo and behold, that revived it. This is a 450 watt power supply, so quite a bit larger than the original. But then again, I decided I would add my old graphics card into this computer. This is my old Radeon R9 270 2GB GDDR5 graphics card, and it requires one 6-pin connector, something the old power supply did not have. So this is a nice, decent upgrade, and overall, I mean, this uses less power than an i7 2600, and it still is able to pull out some pretty serious performance. I was actually really surprised. Now, this thing could benefit from a memory upgrade. I've gave it a slight upgrade from 4 gigs to 6 gigs, because that's all the DDR3 RAM I have lying around at the moment. And it actually seems to run, at least some games, surprisingly well. I was able to play like BeamNG Drive and Golf with Your Friends. Those are some of like the early access titles that I play from Steam. But I'm sure that this thing could actually play quite a bit more if I were to give it some more RAM and maybe some more storage and maybe a clean install of Windows for that matter. And this thing would actually be able to play a lot of stuff. It's actually surprising at how capable the i3 4130 still is. I was really surprised. Now obviously it's not nearly as capable as the i7 2600 is in my main system. Obviously that has 2 more cores and 4 more threads than the i3 4130, which is only a 2-core, 4-thread CPU. However, that doesn't stop it from meaning that it can be an entry-level gaming machine with the R9 270. So again, very impressive performance out of this thing. So I don't know. I have it listed for sale right now as a budget gamer office kind of machine. I haven't gotten any hits on it yet. If it does not sell, I will hang on to it because I have actually got some uses for this computer. But in the meantime, if I can make some profit on it, then that would be fantastic. I don't know. That's what I'm aiming for. We'll see what happens. But again, if it doesn't sell, and I'll give it a couple of weeks maybe, and then if it doesn't sell, then I'm going to most certainly hang on to it for a secondary computer, either at home or maybe up here for doing other things like maybe, I don't know, I guess devoting it for some things. But do expect that maybe we might do a video on this thing in the future about how well an i3 4130 and Radeon R9 270 combo actually works as a budget gaming machine. I don't have the latest titles, but I can at least try some things from my library. So here we have the Athlon 64 box running Windows 2000. Now this machine has been an interesting case of, I don't know what the heck is wrong with the installation. I only really ever played with it during the video and shortly thereafter, but I don't know what's going on. I think this may or may not suffer from the same issue that the Acer Power FX was dealing with, as far as potentially having some kind of a virus infection mess. But I don't know, it's too early to tell at the moment. So yeah, I just turned this thing on. It made a curious BIOS beep of 3 beeps. And I also saw that apparently Java has an update, which is funny. Java 7 update 79 from Java 6. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna quite work, but hey, you know, you never know. I'll be optimistic. But anyway, so I need to get an old version of Malwarebytes on this computer. I was thinking 1.7, but that doesn't technically support Windows 2000. It will run on 2000, but it's not exactly designed for it. It requires Windows XP at a minimum in order to run 1.75, so I don't know about that. It should work just fine, though. I don't see why it wouldn't work. But I'm going to see if I can get something on here to where I can scan this for malware. Because I think another curious issue I was having at the time, and I don't know why my keyboard is not reaching into the back. It's kind of being annoying. Maybe it's exhibiting the issue I'm having. Yeah, there we go. You can see exactly what it's doing there. You can see the system idle process is using 100% of the CPU right now. And that's what's causing everything about the system to act really friggin' slow and goofy. So as you can see, like, doesn't want to recognize the fact I'm pressing the Windows key on the keyboard, but it's more than happy to recognize it when I click with the mouse. I mean, I know that's not my keyboard with dead batteries or anything. I was able to log into the computer, obviously, because it requires Control-Alt-Delete. But let me see here if I can get into Windows Update, because that's not what I wanted it to do at all. Whoops. I opened like 350,000 different sessions of Internet Explorer. Anyway, so this is what's really strange. There's some permission issues going on where if I go into Tools, if I go into Tools, as you can see, there's no option for Windows Update, even though I am an administrator on the computer, like a full-fledged administrator. Now, if I tell the system to go to, let's just say, update.microsoft.com. I don't want to turn caps lock off yet, but there we go. It will browse to the website just fine, but for some reason, network policy settings prevent me from using this website to get updates from my computer, even though I'm an administrator. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I'll have to look into that. That might be something to do with the malware. It might be intentionally setting restrictions. It could be like a rootkit. I did see a rootkit on the Acer Power FX. FH. I almost said FX. So maybe this also has a rootkit issue. That could potentially be. I don't know why I have my main computer on while this is connected, but it's got an antivirus on it, so I think I will be okay if something decides it wants to transfer over the network. But anyway, that's something in my mouth. So I mean, maybe I guess I could try looking into the administrative tools, and I could look at like policies and whatnot, but kind of seems ridiculous that I would have to do this as an administrator. I should have full access to the system. I don't see why I would have to go through this stuff. I'm not really sure what the deal is, but I don't know. I've been contemplating whether or not I actually want to leave this install on here, or if I should just do a clean install of Windows 2000. Because, I mean, I don't really need another XP machine. While this would run XP just fine, I mean, I already have plenty of XP machines, as you know. I mean, I've got some that are running the original installation, some that aren't. But bottom line is, I mean, I don't really need another XP box. I want to have this thing running 2000, and it seems to run it very, very well. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll see if I can clean this install up, see if I can get the network policies straightened out. Maybe I can see if I can, actually get something to work. But otherwise, I guess at this point, it's basically just going to be a format and reinstall. This may or may not get some kind of experimentation, but otherwise I'm just going to mainly use it as a Windows 2000 box. And for those who are curious about this front panel faceplate being missing, it's in here in the faceplate. Chris popped it out on accident, and we haven't gotten it out of the front panel yet. It's just stuck in there. So we just need to take this front panel off to get access to that front panel blank and pop it back into place. So it is there, it's just we haven't bothered to get it out yet. But otherwise, this thing should actually fix up to be pretty decent. It needs a CPU repaste, though. That is absolutely no question, but I can take care of that. That's easy enough to do. It's just a repaste. So anyway, I'm not even going to bother with probably doing anything about this, at least as far as safely shutting it down is concerned. I ought to do that, but if I go to try to safely shut this thing down, as you'll soon notice, it becomes a problem very quick. Oh, looks like it actually didn't exhibit its issues this time. Normally it makes you have to end like every individual process that's running on the system before it'll let you shut down, which is very annoying. But anyway, so let's go ahead and move on to the older systems of the bunch. So here we have the CompactPCI 2266 from late 1998. And this machine, I've basically just done some software work on it in the meantime just to clean it up from some of the original owner's crap. I haven't taken everything off just because some of that stuff I don't actually really think is like replaceable. Like, I don't really think I need this Smart Suite 97, but it looks kind of appealing, I guess. It's got like screen cam and it's got 1, 2, 3 and freelance and Word and whatnot. So I mean, I guess it has some kind of usefulness to it. But there's a couple other things that I might actually consider taking off, or at least turning off potentially. But otherwise, this thing has actually started to clean up a little bit. I have yet to clean it cosmetically, which I'm not really too keen about because this side or this cover is more or less like, I guess, really needing a repainting. But it uses one of those kinds of colors I have to go and look up the colors for. But I'm not in a big rush for that. I mean, this thing really isn't in any need of major restoration at the moment, so I'll probably leave it alone. So otherwise, it seems to be working out pretty well. I have the wrong mouse out. If I have my modern mouse, move that out of the way. So I mean, it's been actually not too bad. I really need to throw an Ethernet card into this computer so I can do a couple more things for it. And I figure, while we're here, I figure we'll try some kind of a demo here because I'm curious about what this B-Demo. Interactive 3D audio demonstration. Interesting. This is so cheesy. Admittedly, though, this is kind of funny. This is kind of like very, very rudimentary, very rudimentary 3D. It's all in software mode and everything's so blocky, but hey, that is kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. Ooh, you can even get wireframe. That's kind of cool. When was this made? 1997. This must have come with this computer or was on like a demo unit or something. That would be my guess as to why that's on there. Other than, of course, the obvious, to show people about what the sound card can do. Anyway, so other than that, I mean, there's a couple other things that I need to do with this machine, as I said, but it's been running pretty strong, actually. I'm quite surprised at how well it runs. Of course, this is 98 first edition, so that obviously says a lot. I haven't really made up my mind if I want to actually like run the upgrade from first edition to second edition, which that does exist on the internet. I can go and download the files for that, but I don't know if I want to do it for this machine because it's all original, and I'd rather leave it that way. That's just my preference, because these things with their original software is getting harder than hen's teeth to find these days. And I know that in some areas it's different than others, but for our area, that's actually extremely hard to see these days. So I think I'm going to leave it alone, especially considering the fact that I don't have the restoration CDs for this model or equivalent model, so that's not helping matters any. I looked. I mean, maybe there might be something out on the internet that I haven't seen yet, and if so, then let me know, because I would definitely like to restore this thing to factory defaults using some kind of CD, from Compaq, or at least an image of it. But anyway, so that's going to sum up this machine. Didn't really have much to say about this one other than to say that it's definitely made some kind of cleanup improvement, I will say. I just need to find some kind of use for this thing, because, again, I've never really played with a computer with a Cyrix 6X86 CPU. Very interesting little machine indeed. I really like it just because of that nature alone, and it's just this really cute and tiny little desktop computer. Definitely would have been a decent bargain machine from the day, late 1998. Anyways, I think the last machine we need to take a look at is the digital PC. So let's throw that up here. Last but certainly not least is the digital PC 3000 with the lovely Pentium 166 MMX and the lovely sounding Quantum Fireball hard drive. Gotta love how that thing sounds. The old bearing noises and everything. This machine has actually been probably one of my most favorited systems out of the 7 that I got. Other than maybe the Core i3 4130 system, of course. It's not very often you see a system like this being sold on Facebook these days, let alone like in general. So definitely, even though I don't have the cover for this machine, I honestly don't care because this thing is still loads of cool. It's a Socket 7 machine with an MMX Pentium. What more could you really want? So I will come back when this boots up because it does take a minute. And there we go, we're basically all started up and ready to roll here. So, this machine had a lot of software cleanup that needed to be done to it. Most specifically, if you remember from the video that I posted, this machine in particular had a McAfee problem where it would hog the CPU at startup for a very, very long time. But now that I've cleaned it up and basically gotten it to the point where it's no longer choking on itself, it's actually not too terribly bad. But one thing I didn't show in the video that I later eventually realized was on this machine was in the temporary internets folder, and I believe I cleaned it out, but I come into the C folder here. I think it's under like Windows, and then I think it's like temporary internet files or something like that. Yeah, there we go. Look at all the leftover crap on this thing. This isn't the only stuff that was on here, not just the cookies, but there was a ton of like saved HTML files of a lot of late 1990s, early 2000s, maybe even mid 2000s porn. Yeah, I mean, what else would you expect from a machine like this, I guess? But yeah, oops, wrong button. Anyway, but yeah, there's a lot of like internet files in here, including low resolution bitmaps and stuff of some lovely private body parts, like the stuff that you enjoy looking at on a regular basis. So yeah, that stuff, needless to say, got tossed pretty darn quickly. Otherwise, I uninstalled a lot of the stuff that I knew I wasn't going to ever really use. I don't really think I need the terminal services client, but hey, maybe it'll come in handy for something in the near future if I ever keep this install of Windows, which I probably won't. This thing is probably going to be subject to some fun little software things in the future, I'm sure. But anyway, it is working, and it's actually working surprisingly well. The only thing that I worry about, because of the fact that it probably had something like this when it was new, there's no baffle over the heatsink and potentially whatever this, I think this is like a voltage regulator module or some kind of cache module. I would expect there to be some kind of like baffle over this. I mean, it's blowing a lot of air. That fan is like a, what is that, like a 5 volt, 12 volt fan? I don't know. Let me see what it says on there for the specifications. So I'm trying to read it and I can't really quite read it from this angle. Yeah, it looks like it's running at 12 volts. So yeah, it's blowing a 12 volt fan amount of air through there. So there's definitely no shortage of airflow, but I would expect it to have ejected itself out this way because I think there's another like way that it cools itself down in there. I'm not too sure, but what do I know, right? So otherwise, other than that concern, it's actually a perfectly functional computer, which is always a good thing. I actually don't know how reliable these digital PCs are, but seems like so far it's pretty nice. Seems like it's a very reliable and seems like a pretty decent machine. So with that having been said, obviously this machine's going to get subject to its own creative little set of videos in the near future, and it's probably going to get a memory upgrade as well. I know 80 megabytes is probably more than enough for a Pentium MMX, but for some of the things that I'd like to do with it, maybe I'll upgrade it past, maybe 128 megabytes. I'm not too sure. We'll have to see what this motherboard tops out at. I'm sure that it either it maxes out at 80 megabytes, or maybe it'll take a little bit more because it's a high-end PC. I'm not too sure. But anyway, we're just going to go ahead and shut it down here. And I'm going to go and wrap this video up. So hopefully in the near future, we get to make some more videos with these memes. And until then, thank you all for watching. We'll see you all in the next one.